On today's show, we're talking about our design system, Valentines. In this special episode, I will shine the light on some incredible individuals in the field who might not be on your radar yet, but definitely should be. I'll cover some of the work they're doing and where you can find their contributions. Get ready to fall in love with these design system Valentines. If you're new, I'm Michelle Chin, design advocate at zeroheight, the design system management platform, and this is Design Systems WTF. All right. So I think what I'm really excited about in this episode, and this was Luke's idea, that we get to highlight some of the people that we really love and enjoy learning from and hearing from. They're not your typical design system people that I guess famous design system people that people go to, or design systems that people readily go to. But I think these are the more obscure ones. I think maybe not too obscure, but ones that are definitely worth paying attention to um, and following, just because I think you can get a lot of great information from them. So um, I think let's start off with, and then feel free to share in the chat if you have your own as well. So I'll start off with design systems because I think everyone thinks of when they think of design systems, they think of carbon and material, and not that they're bad design systems, but I think they're very unrealistic compared to a lot of what most companies and organizations have to create day to day. And they're also very well established. Like materials been around for 10 years, carbon just as long. They had several people, dozens of people working on the design system as well. So um, and when I say several dozens, like 60 people at some time. So that's not always realistic for for most companies with their design system team. So um, let's see. So I'd like to highlight Uber's base. I think that team has done a really great job, and I will provide links to all these resources in the show notes so you can have access to them. But yeah, Uber's design system base is really nice. It has a lot of detail. They clearly communicate the status of components, which is really nice. So anyone going in knows where things are. For the most part, a lot of the site is public. There is some stuff that is locked down. But it's a good one to look at. And then another one that I really like is Nord Health's design system. So the Nord design system is really well done. It's very thorough and thoughtful. They do a good bit with tokens, and you can just see how nice things are documented. And you can tell that there's a lot of care that's been put into their design system. So it is a very beautiful design system. Not built in zeroheight, but that's okay. But like it is really helpful. And then I refer to this one often, the Pajama Design System by GitLab. First, I like the name Pajamas. It's a cool name. I'll have to figure out where that came from. But the GitLab design system is also very thorough, but it has a lot of it shows you a lot of examples of like how to use things, how they structure some stuff, a lot of detail, like where you should have detail, where you shouldn't have it. So if you're looking for inspiration, it's another good one. And then lastly, the Cedar Design System by REI. So if you're not from the United States, REI is like a sporting goods, like an outdoor sporting goods store. And they have a really, really great design system that focuses on accessibility. They have a lot of coverage on tokens and explains how they do their tokens. They also give a good token overview. So it's a really great place for inspiration on how to look at components and document them. And then Matt has mentioned the Atlassian design system, which is also really, really great. And it's evolved over the years quite a bit. And yeah, so that's also a great one. I will put the links in the chat. So they might appear a little messy, but they'll be there. And yeah, they're clickable. Cool. All right. So I think I also wanted to highlight Lucas Opperman. I feel like I'm giving like an award show. So like Lucas Opperman has written like one of the best design token naming articles that I've seen. He is a designer at GitHub, so I will put that link in the chat as well. I think this article really helped me understand like the architecture of design tokens and just like how kind of wild and crazy the space of naming is, because there's a lot of synonyms for things like, you know, if you're familiar with tokens or not familiar, there's like, you could have like your primitive tokens, which are the ones that are named that map to like actual values, like hex values and stuff. But primitive tokens can be could be called core tokens. They can be called a bunch of other things. And I didn't realize how many synonyms there were out there, but I think this helps you build a framework for understanding how to name your tokens in a way that maintains sanity. And then I don't know if anyone else has any other less renowned people that talk about design tokens. Feel free to put that in the chat as well. We'll get those in the show notes. And I also kind of wanted to highlight some teams. So if you think about, I think there's a lot of teams doing a lot of great things. Not all of them are in a place to be able to share their information. But I think the one that I did find was really, really helpful is the UK Government Digital Service team. So I'm not sure if it's their design system team specifically, but that whole team, they did like a web series on WCAG 2.2, so like the new standards, and they explained the various elements of how to understand the elements, like what the guidelines talk about, how to use it, what does it mean for designing components and stuff. So they did a whole web series, and that's like a workshop. So they're all posted online. They're a little bit lengthy, but I think they're super valuable because it's just they unpack a lot of information in a really helpful way, and they share it out with the community, which I think is also pretty rad. And does anyone subscribe to any like design system newsletters or other design system type of like feeds of things? I wanted to mention PJ Onori has Design System News as a website. And this one is, it's not really like a newsletter, but it's kind of just like a website that kind of highlights some really interesting articles that recently came out, and he provides his take. PJ's been at places like PayPal and Pinterest and worked on design systems, and has managed design system teams. So he has quite a bit of realistic experience. And he is based in the Bay Area, so I actually got to meet him one time at a meetup. So that was really cool. And then he also hosts a podcast with Davey Fung called Design System Office Hours, which is also really good. It's a podcast on just different design system topics. And so they did one recently about like design system careers. It's just a really nice way of like hearing more about design systems from the perspective of other people who are actively in design systems and then managing them and kind of going through the challenges of design systems. And I'll put that in there. Sean mentions Hey Designer and Front End Focus are two good newsletters as well. So if you're not subscribed, definitely check those out. Hey Designer is pretty cool. I haven't looked at Front End Focus. But yeah, let's see. Also wanted to mention a couple other folks that are super into design systems, and you might not see them too often, but I think worth mentioning for sure. So Sarah Veselov is a really cool person. She is, I believe, the director of design at honeycomb.io, but she also wrote a book called Building Design Systems. And this is the book. It's a very thin book. So if you're like me and you don't like to read, this is right up your alley. But I think this is often overlooked. And it shouldn't be, because it is actually a really practical manual. It's not going to tell you like how to create your design components, but it's more of like the more strategy aspect and like the business aspect as well. So that's also, I think, really, really important once you are scaling and growing your design system. So it's a really, really great resource. And she actually wrote the book with Tori Davis. So I really like this book and highly recommend it. And Sarah's just a really cool person in general. She used to have a board game cafe where she would like sling coffee shots or sling she was a barista on the weekends, and like people would come in and play board games, and she had like this mega, I don't know, shop with like a bajillion board games. And that was really cool. So she's just like a really cool person in general, but she actually is very I've seen some of her workshops that she does, and she does a really good job in terms of like uh like structuring and framing problems and challenges to make them more solvable and approachable. Very knowledgeable, has a lot of like good business sense experience, because I think especially when you think about design systems, we have to uh it's interesting. Like we have to like constantly pitch the value of it, except the it's a very valuable piece. So unlike any other feature or anything in your product, I feel like design systems have to work twice as hard to prove their value, which just seems very I don't know. Yeah, seems very paradoxical, I guess, if that's the right word. So yeah. And then let's see. Tony Ann mentions that Ben Callahan from Sparkbox has been running a question each week. Not newsletter, but a great place for interesting discussion in the design system space, um, especially from teams who don't publish as much publicly, which is also really great. So that is definitely a great resource. Thanks for sharing that. And then Kendra went to the UK Gov Design System talk in Toronto at the Microsoft building 2 weeks ago. And she also shared some slides, which I'll put in the show notes. And they provided some insights on how to prioritize what to do in terms of accessibility, which I think is always great, because I think that's one of the hardest things to prioritize if you think about it, because everything in accessibility is super, super important, but they all can't get done at once. So how do you prioritize that? So and okay. I think maybe most people know about Amy Hupe. If not, she's a design system consultant, and she's worked on several different design systems within the UK. She has a podcast called Systems of Harm, and I think what's really nice about Amy is that she is like really looking at design systems from like a human and cultural perspective. So, like her podcast Systems of Harm, like what harm is being done inadvertently, right? So, and how can we go about changing that? And she has like a really good approach when an experience from like untangling very messy design systems and advocating for design systems. And she's actually going to start a podcast with Jerry Reed next week, I believe. Yeah, next week, called Back to School. So each episode, they're going to explore an aspect of design systems and kind of unpack like the history, how things came about, where things evolved. So it's definitely different than like your typical like podcast of like up and coming things. It's a little bit more about like foundational things leading into like what exists today. And I think that's going to be super helpful context. Like I'm really excited about it because I get to get some of that history without having to do the research. So thank you, Amy and Jerry. And I also wanted to mention Jerry Reed as someone else who's a stellar design system person. So she is a design system consultant, and she is also very into accessibility. So she's done a lot of great talks around accessibility. I remember a couple of years ago at WDC in Bristol, she did a talk about WCAG 3.0. So like, even though like we just had 2.2 finalized in October, she did one about 3.0 and like what to like be on the lookout for and like what does it mean for you. So I think it's always something that is very interesting to look at, even though the approval of 3.0 will probably be very, very far away from now. It's always good to kind of start thinking about that, doing a little future proofing. But she also did a talk at Converge last year, the closing talk at Converge US, and I'll have to put that in as well in the show notes. I don't have the link to that, but it was really funny. There was basically a talk about like what happens when your design system grows up and moves out and gets its own apartment, and kind of like the evolution of the News UK website or design system, I should say. So wanted to also speak about accessibility, because I feel like there's a lot of overlap between accessibility and design systems. So if you haven't heard of Soren Hanby, uh, they are a really awesome designer, and they specialize in accessibility as well. They actually call I saw them speak at Clarity in San Francisco last year, and they talked about accessibility ops. So rather than like an accessibility, like, oh, we have to add accessibility to our design system or our designs or our code or whatever, like the whole concept was around like the operations of accessibility. So making sure your team was empowered to implement accessibility, people were keeping up with standards and understanding them. Um, so all the logistics, kind of like wrapping it around like making accessibility or including accessibility into your product like very very tangible, very like process based in a good way. So it was kind of like part of like the working system. So I thought the talk was great. They've got a lot of really awesome resources as well. So definitely check out Soren's site and all of their related links. And let's see. I think yeah, if anyone else has anyone that I haven't mentioned yet, please put them in the chat so we can kind of all share. Uh I lastly wanted to like mention Morgan Pang. So she spoke at Converge in the UK in September of last year. She's the director of design at Societe Generale, which is a financial company. And so she's done a lot of work on their design system. They have like a really great team who's done a lot of good work. So you can see some of their articles on Medium. But she also has a series of articles on just like design careers, navigating them. What does that look like? And I think that's really important to think about as you are working on design systems. Like, what opportunities do you have to grow? Like, how can you grow as a leader if you want to grow as a leader? What does your design career look like? And what does it look like to pivot? Because I think if you're into design systems and you want to focus more on that, that's a different aspect than just regular UX or product design, but it's similar. So I think she's got a lot of like several really good articles that can help provide guidance on like careers in general. I think that wraps up my list that I wanted to highlight. But if people have questions around certain topics, I can try to mention people that that I can think of. Oh, I guess I'm looking at my list and I forgot Taylor Cashton. So Taylor is a designer based out of North Carolina, and I used to live in North Carolina for a little bit, so I actually never got the pleasure of working with him. But design circles run small, so I heard a lot of great things about Taylor before he was like then doing a lot of great things. So he wrote like a really awesome article on Medium about design system careers. I'll have to find the link to that, but he's also done several talks and webinars and other things on design systems. And he's currently at the Mayo Clinic, but he's done a lot of like different design system work with different companies. So a good breadth of experience there to share and speak about. And he's a really nice guy. So definitely someone to follow. Yeah, happy to take anyone's topics and then see if we can find a design system person to think about. Also, yeah, happy to, for you to add in any other design people or newsletters or things that might not be, I guess, what everyone defaults to if you think about it. So, yeah, I think the more that we can share, the better, because I think with design systems especially, it's very hard there's no one size fits all. It's like there's so many factors, like so many, like solutions depend on, who's on your team, what kind of team do you have, what kind of governance do you have, how many products are you, working with, what kind of code bases are they using, what are the skill sets of the teams that you have. So I think a lot of it varies. So the more that we can share, the better, is really, really helpful as well. And then I think, let's see. I guess I also wanted to highlight that it's Valentine's Day, and I think if you, or while recording this, it's Valentine's Day. Don't forget to thank your design system peers for the work that they do. I think design systems is a tough job because it is very foundational to a company, and some people can be like, I need my components, and why can't you get my components faster? It can be a very challenging role to be in, but you also have to think about quite a bit, and you're making quite a bit of decisions, and that might not always be fun. You might have to create a lot of versions of components and variants, and that also isn't always fun. You have to think about design tokens, which I don't know, might sound like a fun idea, and then until you realize you are stuck. So it can also not be fun. So I think definitely if you can thank your peers for the work that they do, always be appreciative because it isn't easy if you are not a design system maker but have design system maker coworkers or friends. Definitely thank them for the work that they do because a little bit of thanks can go a long way because it is hard at times, and I think there can be like a lot more struggle, or feels like there is more struggle than appreciation. So I think definitely as a big shout, thank your design system peeps. And then I think like I will put together a list of the people in the show notes that I mentioned. And then I think, you know, if you are on social media or LinkedIn and want to share it out, so we help these people grow their networks a bit more and get their visibility that I think they deserve, that'd be super awesome. Because these are really great and talented people that are contributing quite a bit to the design system community, which is why we wanted to highlight them for today.